because she's mid-season. But I think that injury is really tough because it lingers. No matter how much medicine you take, you can feel fine. You get back out there, one move, one change of direction, and boom, you're right back feeling that same type of pain. So it's going to be a tough injury that she's going to have to manage.
An amazing boost. But again, I'm just going to put my coach's hat on, my GM hat on, you want to see Caitlyn Clark for the longevity of her career? I'm just thinking, me personally, I would not put Caitlyn Clark back on the floor this season. And the only reason why I say that is because I had the injury that she had. That deep groin injury is nothing to play around with. It can feel like you've never had it. You make one move, one cut, boom, she's back in the same spot. I don't know that it's worth it.
Lisa Leslie just set off alarms with a shocking comment about Caitlyn Clark's groin injury. And now fans everywhere are on edge. Fresh footage from Team USA camp shows Clark moving differently, reaching toward her groin, and making expressions that don't look pain-free at all. Leslie warned this kind of injury could linger forever. After 5 months of recovery, fans were convinced Clark was finally back to full strength. Now everything feels uncertain. Before we dig into what's really happening with Clark's injury, and why this new footage has everyone spiraling, I have to ask, do you think Clark is actually healthy, or is she masking how serious this still is? Be honest in the comments. Alright, let's be real about what's unfolding here, because panic around Caitlyn Clark's health is starting to feel justified. And honestly, after watching the footage that's been circulating non-stop, maybe that concern isn't misplaced at all.
Injury that Caitlyn Clark is currently dealing with. And Lisa Leslie said, if it was up to me, if I'm the coach, if I'm the GM, I'm not risking it for the biscuit. An 8th seed? Nah.
Lisa Leslie, the WNBA legend who understands injuries and exactly what it takes to survive at the highest level, made a comment that should send chills through every fan. She warned that groin injuries like the one Clark suffered can linger forever. Forever. Not weeks, not months, forever. Meaning this isn't just a temporary setback, but something Clark could be forced to manage for the rest of her career.
Boost. But again, I'm just going to put my coach's hat on, my GM hat on, you want to see Caitlyn Clark for the longevity of her career? I'm just thinking, me personally, I would not put Caitlyn Clark back on the floor this season. And the only reason why I say that is because I had the injury that she had. That deep groin injury is nothing to play around with. It can feel like you've never had it. You make one move, one cut, boom, she's back in the same spot. I don't know that it's worth risking.
That's a terrifying thought when you're talking about someone who's expected to be the face of women's basketball for the next decade.
Well, I really feel for Caitlyn Clark because I actually had that injury 2006, and listen, I was heavily taped around my thigh, around my glute, just trying to make sure there was enough pressure to hold that groin. And the hard part is that the groin is sort of an area that you can't just touch and go, oh, it hurts right here. You feel it deep. You have to get a lot of deep treatment, whether it's...
Now Clark returned to Team USA camp after 5 months away from real competition, and confidently said she was 100% healthy. She looked sharp in practice, knocking down threes, threading passes, pushing the pace, and fans everywhere finally exhaled, thinking okay, she's back, everything's fine. But then people started watching the footage more closely, and what they noticed has everyone questioning whether Clark is actually as healthy as she says. There are 2 specific clips fueling the concern. In the first, Clark is walking across the court between drills, and there's a noticeable limp. Some fans argue it's nothing, saying it's just the sun in her eyes causing her to squint and look uncomfortable. But focus on her actual gait, because something feels off. There's a subtle wobble, a side-to-side movement that shouldn't exist if everything is truly functioning the way it should. Her face tells its own story too, with brief grimaces and reactions that hint at discomfort. Sure, the sun might explain some squinting, but it doesn't explain how she's moving or the visible tension in her body language. The second clip is even more alarming. Clark is standing on the court and briefly reaches down toward her groin. It's fast, but it's unmistakable. That's not a casual adjustment. That's an instinctive reaction to pain in the exact area that's been an issue for months. And context matters here. Clark missed most of her second season because of this groin injury, appearing in just 13 games the entire year. 13. After shattering 62 records in her first season, she could barely stay on the floor in year 2. She called it a nightmare herself, explaining it wasn't just one injury. It kept piling up. One issue led to another. then another, and every time she thought she was turning a corner, something new flared up or the original injury worsened. Groin injuries are brutally difficult to heal the right way because those muscles are involved in literally every basketball movement: running, cutting, jumping, pivoting. You can't truly rest a groin injury and still play basketball at a high level. It just doesn't work. And that's what Lisa Leslie meant with that chilling "forever" comment. Even once the injury technically heals, the area stays vulnerable. Scar tissue forms. Muscles don't fire the same way. Many athletes end up managing these injuries for years, constantly adjusting workouts, being extra careful with warm-ups, and living with the fear that one wrong move could make everything unravel all over again. That's not the future anyone wants for a 22-year-old superstar. So when fans spot Clark with a slight limp and reaching toward her groin at Team USA camp, the alarm bells instantly start blaring. Because if she's still dealing with issues after 5 full months away, what does that mean for her long-term health? And here's where it gets even more complicated. There have also been unconfirmed but widely circulating reports about Clark dealing with a stalker situation at her hotel during camp. Without solid confirmation, it's hard to go deep on that, but if something like that did happen, the mental and emotional weight would be enormous on top of the physical concerns. Trying to lock in on basketball after a frightening security scare is incredibly difficult. When you feel unsafe, your mind doesn't just snap back into game mode. Every movement, every moment carries extra tension. So maybe some of what we're seeing in Clark's body language and facial expressions is stress or anxiety rather than pure physical pain. Or maybe it's both. Without more information, it's impossible to say. What we can focus on is what's visible and measurable. Day 3 of Team USA camp produced very few Clark highlights, and that's unusual. On days 1 and 2, clips were everywhere: deep threes, sharp passes, playmaking moments that reminded everyone exactly who she is. Day 3. One highlight. Just one. That alone feels off, right? Either she didn't have a strong practice, or something was clearly limiting her ability to go full speed. When you stack the flood of footage from days 1 and 2 against day 3, the drop-off is impossible to ignore. One analyst breaking down the clips noted that early in camp, Clark's speed looked sharp. She was turning corners on dribble handoffs with that explosive first step that makes her so lethal. But by day 3, some of that burst seemed to fade. Maybe it's just fatigue. 3 straight days of intense practices after 5 months away would wear anyone down. But when you combine that with the limp, the grimaces, and the sudden lack of highlights, the picture starts to feel unsettling. Clark herself has insisted she feels 100%. She said touching a basketball again made her feel comfortable instantly, praised the training staff for guiding her recovery, and claimed she felt like herself out there. But athletes say those things all the time, sometimes to convince themselves as much as anyone else. No one wants to admit they're still hurting. No one wants to give opponents or coaches a reason to doubt them or adjust their approach. Saying you're healthy is part of the mental battle. The real question is whether Clark is truly healthy, or if she's pushing through lingering discomfort and hoping it fades with time. And that's why Lisa Leslie's warning about groin injuries potentially lasting forever shouldn't be brushed aside. Leslie played 15 seasons in the WNBA and knows exactly how unforgiving the body can be. She's dealt with more than her share of injuries, and she understands exactly what chronic pain and long-term injury management look like. So when someone with that level of experience says an injury could be permanent, it's not something you brush off. The truly frightening part is how early Clark still is in her career. She's already shown flashes of becoming one of the most dominant players women's basketball has ever seen. But all that potential means nothing if her body can't withstand the grind of professional basketball. There's also the danger of playing through pain and making everything worse, something athletes do far too often. They push through because they don't want to disappoint teammates, they fear losing their role, or they simply love the game too much to stop. But playing on a groin injury that hasn't fully healed is a disaster waiting to happen. The body starts compensating, and that added strain quietly shifts to other areas, creating an even bigger problem down the road. That's exactly how one injury spirals into multiple injuries. It's the same cascade Clark described during her second season. One setback leading to another, snowballing into a series of problems. If she's still feeling discomfort in her groin, The smart move would be to shut it down completely, rest, and ensure everything is fully healed before stepping back onto the court. But that's rarely what athletes want to hear. They want to play. They want to prove they're back. They want to silence the doubters. And for Clark, the stakes are enormous. The 2026 WNBA season is looming, along with the 2026 World Cup with Team USA. She also has the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles, a once-in-a-lifetime stage that any athlete would be desperate not to miss. The pressure to declare yourself 100% and get back on the court is immense. But what's the point of playing in those marquee events if you're not truly healthy? What's the point of competing when one wrong step could re-injure you and potentially cut your career short? That's the nightmare scenario no one wants to imagine. Caitlyn Clark's career being derailed by a groin injury before she even hits her prime. Some observers watching the footage suggest it could be partly mental. Maybe Clark is physically ready, but subconsciously she's still holding back, cautious, protecting herself without even realizing it. That tiny hesitation, the subtle limp, the grimace, maybe it's just her brain warning her body to be careful. And that's entirely possible. Athletes often face this after returning from injury. There's a stage where you're mechanically healthy, but mentally you haven't fully trusted your body again. Every cut, every burst of speed comes with a quiet inner voice saying, "Be careful. Remember what happened last time." Overcoming that mental barrier is part of recovery, and it can take time. Maybe by the start of the 2026 WNBA season, Clark will have pushed past those doubts and be playing with full confidence again. But that's the optimistic scenario. The pessimistic view is that Clark is still struggling with physical pain and limitations she's trying to hide or downplay, because admitting them could raise doubts about her availability and effectiveness. Until she's back in actual WNBA games next year, we won't truly know which version is accurate. Practice footage can only reveal so much. The real test comes when she's on the court for 40 minutes against the league's best, all trying to stop her. One thing is certain. The Indiana Fever medical and coaching staff need to be extremely cautious in managing Clark's minutes and workload when she returns. If she's still dealing with issues, they cannot push her too hard too fast. They must prioritize her long-term health over short-term wins. The WNBA also needs stronger officiating to protect players from dangerous plays that lead to injuries. If referees call games tighter and actually shield athletes from excessive contact, it lowers the injury risk for everyone, including Clark. The footage fueling concern might be nothing at all, just fatigue, the sun in her eyes, or fans reading too much into a few seconds of video. But it could also be a warning that Clark isn't as healthy as she claims. Lisa Leslie's comment about groin injuries potentially lasting forever looms over the whole situation. If that's the case for Clark, if this is something she'll be managing for the rest of her career, it changes everything about her trajectory and what we can realistically expect from her going forward. Fans desperately want to believe Clark is fine, that she's back at 100%, ready to dominate again. Dominate for the next decade. But hoping something is true doesn't make it so. The responsible approach is to watch closely, hope for the best, but also prepare for the possibility that this injury could be more serious and long-lasting than anyone wants to admit. So here's where things stand. Lisa Leslie warns groin injuries can last forever, and new footage suggests Caitlyn Clark might still be dealing with lingering issues. Until she's back in full WNBA games next season, the uncertainty remains. If this breakdown gave you a clear